Hello, Nexus Church family, and welcome back to another week in our series in the book of Esther that we've titled God Remembers You. This week we are looking at the plot thickening. Right when you think things are getting ugly, things just keep getting worse. And as we've discussed many times in this series, the book of Esther seems as if God is not there. But yet, in the background, through it all, God is moving. And it is only by his acts of maybe counteracts to the enemy's attacks, it is only by him could we even get to the end of the story where it's obvious that God is there. But throughout every point in this series, we've noticed how God is moving even when it didn't seem like it. And today we're going to look at the simple fact of how do we go to God? How do we, maybe better yet, respond when there seems like there's no hope? We're getting to the point in the story where, as we've covered leading up to chapter 4, it is imminent that the Israelites don't stand a chance. Last week we looked at how Haman, the wicked servant, the second guy in power in Persia next to Xerxes, issued a decree that the king ratified, saying that all of the Israelites from eastern Turkey, as it's known now, all the way to the western, northern African continent, every Israelite was to be annihilated. Young, old, all of them. And all their possessions would be taken. So we left off with that in chapter 3, and now we come to the response. How would the queen respond? She, being a Jew, knowing full well that if she didn't take action, she herself could be found out and killed. In the least, she would see all of her people killed, most notably Mordecai, her guardian and cousin, would be killed. How could she handle that? How would she respond? Well, let's jump right into it in Esther chapter 4, verse 1, and we'll read the first 9 chapters and then kind of unpack it a little bit. So when Mordecai learned all that had occurred, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, went in the middle of the city, and cried loudly and bitterly. He went only as far as the king's gate. Now, previously, he'd been inside the king's gate because he was one of the officials, right? He was allowed to be within the gates, whether it was because of what he did as an act of saving the king's lives previously with the 2 guys that wanted to murder him, or he was just one of the officials that was placed in authority within the Jewish corridor, if you want. He could not go inside because now he's wearing sackcloth and ashes. So he's there, mourning among the Jewish people in every province where the king's command and edict came. They fasted, wept, and lamented, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So they were distraught. They didn't know what to do. There was no hope, right? The only thing they could do is go to God. Esther's female servants and her eunuchs came and reported the news to her, and the queen was overcome with fear. She sent clothes for Mordecai to wear so that he would take off his sackcloth, but he did not accept them. Understandably, she was confused. What's going on? Only in extreme duress would somebody wear sackcloth and ashes. This was an act of distress, right? And so she sent clothes and he wouldn't do it. And so she's like, what in the world is going on? Why is he doing this? Mordecai would never do this. He would always tell me what's going on. He's not talking to me. This is severe, right? So Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, who attended her, and dispatched him to Mordecai to learn what he was doing and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the city square in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened. as well as the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay the royal treasury for the slaughter of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa ordering their destruction, so Hathach might show it to Esther, explain it to her, and command her to approach the king, implore his favor, and plead with him personally for her people. Hathach came and repeated Mordecai's response to Esther. So, just before we go any further, put yourself into Mordecai's shoes. This guy, as we talked in depth last week, he was faithful. He did everything he was supposed to. He reported to the king when he heard people trying to kill him, plotting a plan, and he reported it to him, even though he himself could have been killed by those two imposters trying to kill the king, right? And then he goes as far as not bowing down to a person to respect God's commands and the Ten Commandments. And now, look at where he's at. His faithfulness to both the king and to his King of Kings got him into a place where all of his people were going to be killed because of his faithfulness. He has brought about the destruction of his people. Could you imagine the weight on his shoulders? No wonder why he was in distress and in sackcloth and ashes, right? He was praying, he was fasting. He was like, God, how could this happen to us? Have you ever been in that situation where and you're doing everything to the best of your ability and it just isn't going right? And Mordecai had no hope, right? The fact that they're in this desolate place, far from God's presence, temples destroyed, and now they're going to be killed. So he responds to Esther, you're our only hope. You need to go to the king and warn him. You need to tell him what's happening. You need to reveal this wicked scheme that Haman's doing, even though the king himself was the one to say yes and gave the ring as a token of his approval that couldn't be revoked. So in essence, what Mordecai was asking, because he knew the king was in charge of this, he gave his permission. Mordecai was asking Esther to reveal her ethnicity. He knew what he was asking. Put it on her shoulders. So the queen responded. She spoke to Hathach and commanded him to tell Mordecai, all the royal officials and the people of the royal provinces know that one law applies to every man or woman who approaches the king in the inner courtyard and who has not been summoned, the death penalty. So if she's not summoned, even though she is the queen, go back to Vashti, who by her not listening and doing what the king said caused her to be gone, right? If I go to him without being asked, same thing, I'll be gone. What do? In fact, she goes on to say, unless the king extends the gold scepter, allowing that person to live, I can't go. What's more, I have not been summoned to appear before the king for the last 30 days. So her response was reported to Mordecai. The queen understood the dire circumstances. She knew what was in front of her. She would see the destruction of her people. But yet she also knew that she couldn't go in front of the king. And if she did, without his approval, she'd be gone. Like she is stuck between a rock and a hard place, as the old saying goes. She had no chance. Sometimes just there's not much you can do but to trust God. God had allowed things get to this point where there's only one way through, and that's through him. The only way Esther could go forward was by trusting God to provide for her, to be the salvation of her and her people. But she had the choice, and it was in front of her. What would she do? Now, again, so many of us listening to this message today know the end of the story, and so it clouds the point where we're at in the story. It makes it seem almost lame, right? Like we know what happens. But if you were in her shoes in that moment, feel the depth of that decision she had to make. So the report went back to Mordecai. And Mordecai replies back to the messenger to say to Esther, "Don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace." Whoa, like, drop the mic, baby. Give the elbow to the old Chesteroo. That's a kick in the pants, right? You're not going to escape this. You think God's going to let you just walk away? Like, the blood is going to be on your hands, Esther, if you let this happen. God has put you in this position. God's been in the background this whole time. You shouldn't be the queen. Of all of the millions of people, all of the ladies that he could have chosen from Northern Africa, all the way to northeastern Turkey, you were the one, Esther, that was picked. That was God ordained. Famous quote, verse 14. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come. But there's not more faith-filled words in the Bible than that. It will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. So beautiful. Esther, you're going to be found out. You can't escape this. You have been entrusted by God, just like Mary was entrusted by God with the seed that would bring salvation for all people. And she said yes. Esther is just a beautiful foreshadow of what was to come in the birth of Jesus. You have deliverance for your people now. Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this such a testament, a foreshadowing of the salvation that God provided through Jesus? This is truly a prophetic text pointing towards what will come. This is just a hope, a brief blimp on the screen, right, of what will ultimately come in salvation. You are the answer. You are the hope. Esther, you take it. Take it. Mordecai, what powerful words. He so trusted God. He spoke into Esther's life at this moment. He spoke life. He spoke belief. He spoke purpose into her life. I believe you've been placed here for such a time as this. But if you don't choose it, even if you don't, even if you perish because of this decision you make, I know God will. He promised it, and he will deliver. Man, what faith in Mordecai. What trust. With no weapons, Israel would be absolutely annihilated. How could this be? that God would deliver his people with nothing at their arsenal, right? No tools, no nothing. But he would come. He would come. And God says to Esther through Mordecai, you are my option. You are the vessel that I want to choose. Will you rise up, Esther? Will you take the helm? Will you trust me? You have faith in me. Man, what did she do? Listen to this powerful reply, to this powerful plea and trust for Mordecai. Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Here it is. Go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my female servants will also fast in the same way. After that, I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went and did everything Esther commanded. Not only did Esther do exactly what Mordecai had already previously done, fasted, prayed, sought God, but she requested that he go out and get an army together to do the same. And she and her servants would likewise do the same. Every choice you make has an influence on others. She took a stand. She took a stand and she went to God. She didn't look for power outside of God. She didn't try to muster the energy or the wisdom or anything else. She asked for people to surround her and join her in seeking God. What a powerful influence. We're not to go it alone. We have people around us for a reason. Utilize them. Surround yourself with good people that seek God with you. She was committed to being God's vessel, even if it resulted in death. What, like, huh? Like, so often we're like, here's success, right? Success is I'm going to pull up the bootstraps. I'm going to put on the armor and I'm going to fight. And what does she say? Surround me with people who are going to pray, and if I die, I die. What is success? What is success? What if Esther did die? Right? Like, what if she approached the king and he's like, what are you doing here? Don't you remember what Vashti had, what her result was? She didn't come when I asked her, and you're coming when I didn't ask you. What is up with these women in Susa? Get them out of here. Let's be real. All roads pointed to death. If you were just removing the end of the story from your brain and coming into this text fresh today, not knowing what would happen, what would you think was going to happen? Right? Vashti got killed. Haman, like, he pretty much solidified the fact that there was no hope for Israel's survival. Like, everything was going to be destroyed. They have nothing to fight with. There was no hope. King didn't care. He was like, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want. I've got all the power, all the money. I don't need those slaves anymore. Point is, seeing the outcome we want is not always success. her faithfulness to God, her obedience to rise up and to be something that is available for God to work through is what success is. Her going to God, her surrounding herself with people that would lift her up and give her wisdom. And then her responding out of obedience, I will do it because this is where God has led me to. And I will not stop following him for one moment. That is success. Being obedient to God is success. But we'll come back next week to see how she goes about approaching the king, how she goes about revealing the plan. And it is a wise, well thought out plan that she comes up with. But as we stop today to reflect, I want to process with you the decisions that Mordecai and Esther made that give us an example of how we are to make decisions in life. Now, you, like me, will probably not make this kind of life-altering decisions, right? Life or death. Some people will, right? Some people will make those kinds of decisions that unless they rise up and they say yes to an opportunity, the result will be destruction. But for you and I, we have decisions every day. Life decisions, marrying, moving, starting a new career, whether we invest money, whether we give to a church or an organization, go on a short-term missions trip. All these things are decisions. How do we go about making them? Well, I believe the first thing you need to do is be intentional about seeking God, praying, fasting. It's a great practice. I know it's forgotten today, but it is removing something in your life, predominantly food, to focus on God, reflect, to seek him. So remove yourself from all the distractions and all that's going on and just seek him. Desire him. Worship him. And then surround yourself with people who will do the same for you, seeking God, praying, fasting with you, asking for God to reveal his plans to you, and maybe even to them to reflect it to you as maybe a word of affirmation, right? So surround yourself with those people. And then take your time, right? She took her time, right? She processed it. She allowed God to speak. She had time, thankfully. Sometimes we don't, right? But the best way is to process, to let God move. And then when he reveals it, don't put it off. Obey immediately. So pray, fast, spend some time with God. Surround yourself with people who will do the same and have wisdom and speak to you honestly. Take your time and then obey. You come to decisions in life. That is the best option you have available to you. Surrounding yourself with God, his people, and taking time. So, Father, I pray right now for those listening. We all have decisions to make, whether today or in the future. We have decisions, and I pray that they will take this easy to apply process. Go to you, surround themselves with good people, and allow time to bring clarity. I pray that they will take that now and use it effectively, and obey immediately when you call. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks for joining us today, Nexus Church family. We'll come back next week when we start getting that plot to thicken and to get juicy. Catch you then.